Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity. Hello again, BIM thinkers. It's time to start BIM thinking with BIMThoughts. And another great introduction, if I may say so myself. Today, we have the fantastic, way cool Carl Storms and the wonderfully talented Dana DeFilippi and a special guest, Lisa-Marie Mueller.
Hi.
With us as well. Hello, Lisa-Marie. Define yourself.
Yes. So I am a job captain with Dahlin. That's an architecture firm mostly based on the West Coast. Right now, of course, we're all working from home, but I generally work in the Pleasanton office, so East Bay. I am also an architect licensed in Texas, and I'm still working to get my California license right now. And I'm also on the design technology team at the firm. So we run the BIM implementation, we set up our standards, and then also work on training seminars.
Wow, you're busy.
Oh, yes. And that's just the job part.
That's just the job part. Right.
Lots more outside of that as well.
Good. Yeah, I looked at your blog today.
Yes.
It's very nice looking.
Thank you. I designed the website and I did the front end, but my husband's also a software engineer, so he helped with the back end.
So what's with the movie reel and the icons?
I just wanted to have some fun with it and make it a little bit more than just text. I know technical blogs can kind of be a lot of words sometimes, and so I just wanted to have a little bit more visual to it as well.
More visual, yeah. Yep. There's a lot of words. TLDR. That's okay. But there's a lot of programming stuff in there too. That's pretty cool. Wish I would have seen this a lot earlier than today.
Thank you. Yeah, I really, a while back, I had been coding for a little bit, but a while back got into the Revit API, and really more out of just a curiosity of, hey, what can you do with this? And based on the resources I found, I really just wanted to document what I was doing to just have more information out there. And also I kind of took the approach of walking through some of the tasks that I was doing so that you could follow it through from the beginning to the end. Yeah,
it's a good way also to learn how to do these things too by
Definitely.
blogging about it.
Yeah, I actually find it really helpful. Sometimes if I forget what I was doing a couple months ago, I can just look back and I have it right there.
I refer to my Great Mojave Rover site from time to time to remember how I configured my little Linux PHP and server and things like that. Figure that out again. It becomes my notebook.
Exactly. Yeah.
Blogs are great for that. That's the same reason I started mine, less for coding, but again, finding things and stuff that's interesting. And it's a moment in time where you keep track of things and go back and get it. So they're very helpful that way. And like you say, Lisa-Marie, they're very good for learning. The act of writing something out and putting it in a presentable way so that other people can learn from it really kind of seals it in the old brain bank there that you remember it for later on.
That's so true.
As we're talking about that, Bill was talking about your blog. One of the things that I really like about it is the way that you do your posts about the coding and the Revit add-ins as it happens to be, is the way that you actually show the code snippets. I don't know how you got it to look like that and how it's very readable. It changes in size depending on how many lines you have, and it's very easy to copy and paste. So all of that is very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Copy and paste is major. Right? When I see an image of code, I'm like, what is this image? Collectability is fantastic.
Yeah. That's something I appreciate about other resources that I've found, and so that was definitely something I wanted to integrate. I think being able to use other people's work as a stepping off point when they're willing to share it is really valuable, and so I definitely want people to be able to copy, paste, edit, and all of that.
Mm-hmm. So on all of your little programming posts here, which one is you're most proud of?
I would say the first one, the automating interior elevations, just because it was the first one, and so getting to the end of that was a really exciting moment. I would say it's also, in a way, not completely finished in terms of I have not yet installed this on everybody's computers at work yet. The posts are intended to walk through to get you to a plugin that works for what you want to do, but there's a lot of rigorous testing that you want to go through to make sure that if, hundreds of people potentially are using it, that you have kind of worked out all of the details of that. So after I blog about them, I do still continue to develop them in a little bit more detail. And that one's now the first one that's getting very close to actually being done and being able to test it out on different people's machines.
Great. Yeah, that's when you find all of the challenges.
Exactly.
I would never thought that someone in their right mind would right click on that thing right there and select this option.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's that sometimes becomes a little bit of a challenge because when you're the one writing it, you're the one testing it, you try to come up with all the scenarios, but ultimately you can't. So it's important to have a smaller group of people that are willing to help you out and figure out what could go wrong.
Right, right. I have the same challenge just in my forms that I make to fill out things. It's like, oh man, people do put apostrophes in things.
Right.
And that does screw up the string. How am I going to get that resolved?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I see also in your bio it says something in there about Dynamo.
Yes. And so when I first launched the website, I actually had hoped that it would be a little bit more balanced, half Dynamo, half coding, but just due to kind of a number of circumstances, it ended up being a little bit geared towards coding right now. I have written Dynamo scripts. Right now, we're having a little bit of a challenge implementing them firm-wide. Dynamo Player, of course, has been out a little bit. That had helped a lot, but I think we're still not quite like in that mindset of using them every day. So I've been doing a little bit less writing based around that just because I'm actually not really developing them on a regular basis at the moment.
So how do you deploy your scripts now?
They are just an add-in, so copied into the Revit folder. As of right now, so I've been at this for a year, maybe 7 or 8 months or so. So as of right now, we've tested the renaming interior elevations one with a very small group of people at the firm. But as I mentioned, the interior elevations one hasn't been ready for that rollout yet. So we haven't gotten to the full firm-wide launch yet because of just timeline. It actually ends up taking a little bit of time to develop it, test it, and all of that.
What about your Dynamo graphs? How do you deploy those?
Right now, it's really just a team-by-team basis. So if a team is interested in a specific script, we'll talk about it, and then we'll get it on their computer. I think managing packages is one challenge that a lot of firms face, and so that has been kind of our biggest challenge. Also, especially because we don't always have the absolute most recent up-to-date Autodesk products. Obviously our IT team works very hard to keep us as up-to-date as possible, but normally we're at least 1 year behind the current release.
Okay. So you're probably running 2019 now?
Correct.
Yeah.
So with that question that Bill asked about deploying the Dynamo scripts, I'm just curious, Lisa-Marie, have you had a chance to sort of explore the new and awesome, I might add, tool
Right.
from the folks at Data Shapes Orchestra?
I have not had a chance to look into it in detail, no.
Okay, and I know it's still pretty new in the beta shape, beta state, I guess is a better way of saying that instead of beta shape. But it looks like it does a lot of really cool things as far as helping that issue of deploying those Dynamo scripts, and especially now that we still got people using 2017, 2018 with the
Right.
1.3 versions. We got the people using the 2019 with 2.03. We've got people in 2020 with 2.3 and 2021 with
Right.
2.5. It starts to get a little cumbersome.
Yeah, just a little bit. And we also don't have like a full-time dedicated employee that only does Dynamo, for example, or like only does automation. All of us on the design technology team are also still actively working on projects. So our time ends up being split probably more of like an 80-20 or 90-10 sort of split, with the larger portion going towards projects. So yeah, keeping up with all those versions and what packages are supposed to be where is definitely a challenge.
I know, Dana, you're chopping at the bit to get in here to talk about deploying Dynamo scripts.
Well, no, it is a challenge. It's very challenging, especially when you have to worry about custom packages. If you're using custom packages, I know that the 2.5 version of Dynamo, some things happened in the background with Python, so some different things like that. So it
Right.
definitely becomes a challenge as we migrate through versions, especially, but just in general, Dynamo is quite a hassle to manage. It really is. With the replication, you can't really link your package location to a server, so that has to be a local location. How do you get
Right.
everybody to have the same having a button, I definitely feel has its advantages for that reason.
Yeah.
We're thinking of, well, we just started doing Dynamo at our office. Shame on us, right? And we are trying a command where we copy the stuff to their local C drives, all the Dynamo stuff when they restart their machines. So it does a robocopy. I don't know if you're
You have a
familiar with
replication tool, don't
robocopy.
you, Bill?
We have a deployment tool called PDQ Deploy. We did a group policy that runs a script that robocopies from the server to the computer C drive. And I thought I was quite smart when I did this, in that on the server, I actually replicated what the files and folders of the C drive. So I have one folder called C, and then inside the C folder is one called program data, and then in program data. So it replicates the whole thing. So our Dynamo guru, all he has to do is copy the script and all the other supporting files into that folder where they belong. So if it needs to live in the C program data, then he copies it into the C program data folder within that other folder, and then Robocopy does the job and copies everything. And so far that seems to be working from what I've heard, but I'm wondering if I'm missing anything. And so I thought I would ask my Dynamo expert friends and my new Dynamo expert friend what we should be looking out if we're doing something as snazzy as that.
I luckily have a development team at Smith Group that I work with, so I
Uh-huh.
don't have to worry about these types of
Oh,
things.
okay.
We should definitely have one of those guys join us in a chat on how they replicate all this stuff in the back end, because
Yes.
it's a huge challenge, right? I'm actually looking at the known issues on GitHub, and for 2.0, it says if the network drive pointed by managed node and package paths is greater than 1 terabyte in size, loading
Oof.
Dynamo may be more than a minute or more, irrespective of actual package size. They actually
Wow.
recommend that the drive size is 100 gigabytes or smaller.
On the network drive?
Do you have a network drive that's 100 gigabytes or smaller?
No, our network drive is over 100 terabytes in size.
Yeah, so you're gonna, unfortunately, if you package, if you put all your packages in one of those locations, Dynamo is going to take a minute or more to respond.
Oof. Well,
And
that's no fun.
and when you're trying to automate that, a task that that can
Mm-hmm.
actually really slow you down.
Now, with some of that, that was the issue with 2.0. Those that some of that speed and some of the way that it handled the packages was subsequently updated with I think they're at 2.0.4 now, and then obviously improved when they got the 2.3 and 2.5 versions. But when they first got into 2.0 from 1. Whatever it was at the time, 3 or 2, there was some real problems with the packages and where they came from, and that if you had a previous graph that pointed to a package that was designed for 1.3 and you were into it would just kick everything out. So they definitely had to do some work on the back end to improve that, and it has got better. But as Bill was saying, there's still that issue with all of the different versions and all the different people. So the idea of just being able to replicate the script, and then when you come in the morning, you've got that script.
Right.
Seems like a good idea. What it might have to be something where you're replicating not only the scripts or the graphs, but also the packages, so that
Mm-hmm.
you have the same version of the package that whoever is using that doesn't. And that's kind of what this orchestra software does. It sort of looks after all of that in the background. So.
Have you tried Orchestra yet, Dana?
I haven't. I try to do most of what I do through a native Dynamo player. I don't really use data shapes too much,
Oh,
but I
okay.
should look into that definitely, because
Yeah.
that seems like it's additional functionality for what
Yeah,
we just typically think about with data shapes.
correct. It's a separate program. There's a fee involved. You get all part of that, but it's really about storing in a repository for your packages. But yeah, certainly check them out, and Mustafa and the team would definitely show you more. Certainly not trying to make this a paid ad for the Forks at Orchestra, but it fit in very nice with the
Right.
conversation that we're having.
Mm-hmm. It isn't a paid ad because I haven't paid yet.
See, there you go.
Oh, all right. Let's get back to the to our special guest, shall we? Since we got sidetracked, we squirreled there for a second. So Dynamo, what other things are you doing in Dynamo, Lisa-Marie?
Dynamo mostly just like tasks here and there, just on a per project, or if somebody comes to me and is like, I really need this done. It honestly isn't like a super regular occurrence at the moment. And I think, yeah, that has just come out of some of those challenges with package management. The people who are really on board with it and always willing to try something new will always be looking into stuff. We are slowly starting to get into some template automation that can help purge unnecessary views depending on the type of project you're starting and things like that. And that is in the very early stages. We had been gathered resources from, I know a lot of people have implemented that at their firm, and so that is one thing we're just now starting to look into.
What's been your biggest hurdle?
I think the biggest challenge, whether it's Dynamo or coding, is always just the unexpected things that come up. You can have a plan, you can know all of the steps along the way, but all of a sudden, there's a node that isn't working exactly how you want it to, or you're trying to get information out of a Dynamo graph that there's just not the right node to get that information, or, in coding, it's a method that you can only create something with this specific information that you don't know how to find. But I think those also kind of lead down the rabbit holes of exploration, and I think that can sometimes make your biggest challenge be one of the most fun and enjoyable aspects, because you're learning so much more than you thought you did, because it is more challenging to get to the end step.
Yes. Where do you find most of your example codes or answers?
I usually Google things and then whatever comes up. I know the Building Coder blog from Jeremy Tamick, of course, is extremely helpful, and he documents everything. Also, just different presentations, either from AU or built that might be available. Some people post their PDFs on their own blogs or websites after conferences. So a wide variety of resources out there.
That's really one great thing about our industry, right? And I think you're 100% contributing to that, or I should say for Carl, 100p.
Thanks, Dana.
Contributing to the culture in which we have with the AEC industry of sharing, right? And your blog is definitely apparent in that. And it's really great how robust it seems that your workflows are, right? It doesn't seem like you're just doing one task or another, or you're just doing things in construction documentation. It seems like you're actually kind of all over the map with that, which is really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to be, and that element of our industry also, just the willingness to share and teach each other, was definitely a huge inspiration for me. And also just, I know how much I rely on the resources and other people putting their expertise out there, and how much I appreciate it, that I it sort of helped kind of make that an obvious step to also be doing that and be sharing that with other people.
But no, I mean, even like you said, even just being able to Google something and being able to find stuff, right?
Exactly.
When I'm teaching or trying to encourage people to learn Dynamo, that's definitely something I say is, you come up with a problem and then Google it.
Yes.
And you will most likely find a bunch of resources.
Yeah.
So that's really wonderful.
Definitely. And I think also for me, that's always been the way I like to learn best. I'll read about some things and like get some information, but I really just like to dive into the problem. And so I think it didn't take long between me taking some online C# courses before I kind of was like, okay, well, let's just try something in Revit. And I just picked something that I hated to do manually and looked at how I could automate that. So I think if it's something that you're passionate about, you'll always kind of find a way to get there.
Definitely. And I'm with you. I remember the first time I created a workflow that, didn't have any errors and worked as I expected it. I was ecstatic.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much that tiny little, you run something as simple as a little Python or C# script or even a Dynamo graph that, like you say, Dana, works exactly as you want. I still, to this day, when I get into work, do a fist pump and high five myself in the office. It's like I just won the lottery. It's crazy.
Right
there with you. You feel like a superhero in a way.
Yep.
So what was your first one, Dana? What was your first one that gave you the high fives to yourself?
My first one was on occupancy calculations and moving key values from and that's actually what I spoke on at AU and built, right? But yeah, no, that was my first one, and I actually did it on a Saturday because I was just so into it. I wanted it to work, and after hours, of course. And once I got it to work, I actually Instagrammed it.
Did you?
I did. I Instagrammed the graph. I was just I needed to mark this monumental,
mark the day on the calendar.
Yeah, that and how, because like we said, it's just like this huge feeling of triumph.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Lisa-Marie? What was your first big workflow how did you do it? Was it in C#?
My first graph ever was actually in Grasshopper, which I haven't used professionally, but that was the first kind of even vaguely coding related thing that I learned back at university. And that was the typical where you have a rectangle and a bunch of circles, and you make the circles look like an image on the rectangle with attraction points to the different values of the image. I think that's a very common, at least in the classroom, way to get people started. In terms of professionally, first dynamograph, gosh, I want to say it was also something along the lines of copying over either information between shared parameters or something like that, where I think, for area plans for single family, they had to remove a certain square footage that was represented by the filled region. So we took the filled region area and put it into the room's parameter that stored that data so we could use it for calculations.
Yeah, that
Cool.
sounds like something I'm sure was causing you a lot of problems beforehand, right? And so
Yes.
when you finally got it to work, you were like, oh my gosh, I just solved, like, world peace just happened, basically.
Right. Yeah, it's always an exciting moment.
Back when I was managing the consulting department for a reseller, we had this young programmer right out of college. His name is Seth Juarez. And right now, Seth Juarez works for Microsoft. He's one of the one of the hosts on Channel 9. If you're
Cool.
with Microsoft's YouTube stuff. And whenever he would get something to work, he would yell, "I'm a genius!" and stand up. And it was so now when I get something to work, I yell, "I'm a genius!" and stand.
I'm gonna steal that, Bill.
You're gonna steal that one?
I'm gonna steal that. I like that. I like that.
I'm a genius. I think my genius moment was what was my last genius moment? Was probably in a PHP program because I have switched gears a little bit from making stuff in Revit to making stuff for Vision in PHP to make our project manager lives easier, so they don't have to go into Vision all the time to get some data in there. So I'm doing different things now. Isn't that wonderful?
Always nice doing different things. My last I'm a genius moment was a C# script to rename all of my Revit files that I would do when I was teaching classes. So I'd have 50 files and I would rename them with my initials at the end so I wouldn't overwrite the original. And it was like, yes, when I got it to work. And then I found out there was a much better existing freeware program out there that did it, but that didn't detract from the fact that I got it to work myself.
Yeah, Batch Renamer is an awesome program.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that evolution that you were talking about, Bill, that you're now doing something completely different. I think that's
Right.
super interesting. And I see Lisa-Marie has a very well, not similar, but it's in the fact that it's so drastic, right? It seems like you started out as a drafter, and
Right.
you're getting your architectural license, and you're what we call on the dark side. And that migration is obviously super interesting to us. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe how you got to where you are at, is it Dahlin Group?
Yes. Yeah. And in a way, it does still feel a little strange because most of, like, not even just most of, all of my coding work and everything that I do is all my weekends and my evenings. And, for most of my day at work, I have maybe 10 to 20% of my time doing various design technology related responsibilities, but then I also still have a very huge part of my day that is still job captain work, drafting projects, client meetings, all of that. And so I would say I haven't quite, made that leap over yet. But I think it's just because I currently just love it all so much. Like, I am really attached to the projects that I'm working on. I have the pleasure of working with amazing clients, and I do still enjoy the architecture, and I think that also lets me bring a unique perspective to coding and customizing, because right now I'm coming at it of what do I not like to do manually, what bores me, like which tasks would I rather have automated. And so I think that aspect does help me out quite a bit. I think also that kind of inspiration keeps me motivated to keep working on these tasks. And as I kind of build my skills, I mean, I haven't been at this for a crazy long time. And so I think that it keeps me interested in trying to explore new avenues and new topics and learn about those.
I would 100p agree with that. That being in the trenches and being in production, that definitely makes us more aware as to what the current issues are. What am I faced with every day? What am I having to
Yeah.
spend half of my billable time doing? Right?
Yes.
And that makes you so much more valuable. But I would argue that if you're coding in your spare time, especially on the weekends, you've made the leap, and you're not just teetering on the fence of dark side and not dark side, we'll say. You're fully immersed in the dark, and that's all. I think that is fantastic. Personally, I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Because it's hard enough just getting a standard project architect, or especially a job captain, to use a Dynamo script, let alone to get in C# and take an online course and really want to figure out how to create the button.
Yeah.
Solve world peace, of course.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, I think thank you. And I think it's also actually just opened a lot of different doors in my life, and it's just I've been able to meet a lot of people also outside of our industry that just gives me different perspectives. And I think also just by being an architect that knows how to code, there's so many other things that you can implement, like using macros with Microsoft Office to automate other, mundane tasks, most of which you don't even have to write yourself because so many people share them on the internet. And just like having a new perspective of different problem solving skills. And I think having a skill that kind of lies a little bit outside of AEC just brings a new perspective in a way.
Absolutely. It ties back to, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
Right? So even if you aren't a master of all things C#, just having the ability to say, like, oh, there has to be a way to do this better.
Yeah.
Right? And having that power of knowledge behind you is 100p what we need in people to be thinking of, to have that mindful concept of not just computation, but just in general, like you're saying, Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key right there. That's the difference between a programmer and a non-programmer. Is not being afraid, and two, knowing that there's got to be a better way, and taking the time to figure out that better way. That's the big difference between a programmer and a non-programmer. A non-programmer just continues on with life, pressing the enter key 100 bazillion times. A programmer finds a way for the computer to press that enter key for them.
And that's where the idea comes that when you're looking for people, you're looking for lazy people. The lazy people make good programmers, not because they're not motivated, but because they don't want to do that annoying thing over and over again. They want to get it done quickly, program it, and move on.
Depends on the definition of lazy, but
I just gave you the definition of lazy.
Yeah.
Somebody that doesn't want to do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But yes, you're right. By saying lazy, sometimes people don't like that, but you get the idea that the people that are looking for a quicker way, a better way to get something done.
And today, in today's security conscious programming, the lazy programmer is the worst programmer. Just ask all the programmers who work for Zoom about all of the security flaws that now they have to fix.
I didn't say a lazy programmer, I said a lazy person.
Yeah,
So someone that wants to find a better way to get something done. But you're absolutely right. Then that's why using lazy gets us into trouble.
right. We don't want to be lazy. We want to be smart.
There
We
you
want
go.
to. We
Efficient.
want to. Where's that? Oh yeah, I found a button that says "Work harder and smarter," or "Work smarter and harder," because It's not about working hard. Don't work harder, work smarter. You got to do both nowadays. But anyway, that's a different subject for a different time.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. Why do I always squirrel?
It's just you,
Hmm
Bill.
It's me. I'm a squirreler. I'm squirrely. It is 36 minutes in already.
No way.
Time flies. We've already meeting our Aubin and the length of a polar bear ride probably.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts?
I would just encourage people to learn to code if it's something you're interested
Mm-hmm.
in. Take the time and figure something out. Start with something you're interested in. There's a lot of great tutorials, like on how to code video games, for example. There's no wrong way to learn. Just have fun
Right.
with it.
Absolutely. Dana, I'm sure you've got a final thought for us as well.
No, I am completely in agreement with Lisa-Marie that just take the dive and come up with your problem, Google it,
Right.
and feel like a superhero. Even if that's just plugging some nodes together in Dynamo, right? Like Carl said, you don't have to be a writing code. You can just be a visual coder to feel like a
Mm-hmm.
superhero
Exactly.
and to save yourself some serious time, right?
Right. And don't be afraid to write one line of code, try it, write the next line of code, try it, write the next line of code, try it. That is a completely logical and accepted programming behavior, especially when you're first starting out.
Or try somebody else's code, right? Like Lisa Marie's.
Mm-hmm.
Go onto her blog, copy her code, give it a try. And I'm sure if you reached out to her, she'd probably be really nice enough to contact you back. And but also like we
I.
said, the forums, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can really just Google
Mm-hmm.
everything. The Dynamo forums, the GitHubs, the Revit
All of that.
Coder, the Revit API docs, all
Mm-hmm.
wonderful resources that we will
Yeah.
definitely post to the descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And you also don't need to worry that if you get into some place where you can't code or you can't do it or it's beyond your head. That's the other thing that
Yeah.
reaching out and Googling helps you learn is that some stuff isn't for the at home on the weekend for fun coder. And knowing that gets you halfway there as well.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us, Lisa Marie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for
And your
having me.
blog is lm2.me?
Yes, and you can also find me on LinkedIn at Lisa-Marie
Uh-huh.
Mueller and Twitter at lm2_me.
Right. Fantastic. And you're still the BIMsider, right, Carl?
Still the BIMsider.
Still the BIMsider. And where can people find you, Dana?
I'm Dana DeFilippi.
You're
You
Dana
might not be able
DeFilippi
to
everywhere.
pronounce the last name, but we'll
Or
post
even
it in the
say it for that
description
matter.
or say it
Yeah.
like Bill.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
just
I,
now started to get it right.
I got it figured out.
Yeah.
I recorded it and played it over and over and over again.
I love it.
All right, you can find me, Bill DeBevic, on everywhere, or read the factory manual on the YouTubes, which I have made 100 subscribers. And I received a special gift from the Googles for reaching 100 subscribers. So there's a video on that. And thank you for joining us yet again on BIMThoughts.